Hi guys, it's Chris from the Ultimate Recycler. The vision you're looking at now is from a recent shed treasure hunting expedition I went on in the American pickers style. We went Aussie picking in an old machinery workshop, and you can see by these clips that there was just stuff everywhere. I managed to get a good ute load, and that video can be seen on the link up the top now, and it's well worth going to have a look. We did find some good gear. This video will be the first of a few I'll do on appraising what we found, and we'll go through 10 or a dozen or so items in each part and just show you what I found, why I grabbed it, what's involved in making it saleable, and what I think it's worth. I'll give you an appraisal as far as my values go and what I'll sell it through the shop at. So stay tuned, have a look at this stuff, give us some feedback, and enjoy. Okay, let's start with this old 4-panel door. Why did I grab it? Well, it's in pretty good condition. These old early doors can sell okay. Probably early 1900s. Usually made out of pine. And this had a bit of a practical purpose in that it's handy to put over the top of the trailer load to tie down. So I grabbed it for those reasons. All it really needs is a brush down. The little sliding fittings at the top aren't original. It would have had hinges. And I think this side does show evidences of where the hinges were. I'm just going to brush this down and put it out the shop today. And I don't know, we'll try and get 50 bucks. Okay, these three items are all quite dirty. The white timber bookshelf is sort of an Art Deco stepped design. It would be, perhaps from the 50s or so. It has got dovetail joints there, and they're very uniform, so it'd be referred to as a machine-made dovetail. I'd suggest that's 1950s. It's quite solid and not rickety, so that'll wash up fine. Not sure on the price of that. I'd probably sell it for about $30 or $40. But I'll probably have somewhere in the shop that I'll use that. It's good for books, being a bookshelf, of course. These really cute little kids' chairs, I'd say 1960s. They're very dirty, as a lot of stuff is in this from this shed. It's a vinyl material that isn't torn, and it might clean up okay on a steel type frame. So there's no real issues other than it's a bit dirty. It is missing some of the plastic little feet, but I think I might have some of those. Depending on how they clean up, I reckon $20 the pair easily. And this rocking chair, it's an older one. It's missing one of the spindles from the backrest. Unfortunately, I couldn't find it. But the armrests there, it just needs gluing together. The rocking mechanism and all the legs are quite good. It just needs really a wash down. So I'll just wash it, I'll glue the joints and put that out the front. And even with the missing backrest spindle, I would think I'd get $30 for that, no problems. So just a wash up and a bit of glue there. This old Healing console radio, probably 1930s, maybe into the 40s, I haven't looked it up. Really nice Art Deco design. The cabinet's only a veneered ply, so there's not really good quality in the furniture. And the problem with ply is that once it gets into sheds, the moisture gets under it. So the cabinet's got a few issues, not structural, but it would take a fair bit to restore it. These console radios just aren't worth the effort, really. Certainly not to resell. If you enter it as a hobby, then that's fine. But there's a lot of work to go into restoring the cabinet. Speaker cloth, you can get that, that's not a problem. All the knobs are there, which is good on radios. The dials there, looks pretty good. And from the back, you can see that it's complete. The chassis appears to be a bit rusty and dusty, but it would probably be restorable quite easily. I'm not sure what the go is with the light globes, and there's a little power, sort of a fuse box down there. I don't think that's original. The old speaker looks alright, although the paper cones are normally damaged. And the wiring, of course, has totally had it. That's a speaker wire, that's the mains in. Although this isn't mains, I think this is a battery operated radio. So we won't be doing restorations on it, we'll be just selling it as is. I might try and clean it up a bit, but I've grabbed it because it looks great in the shop. And look, I could possibly even sell the knobs and things and the dial surround on eBay, but then I'm left with something that no one wants. So I'm going to put probably about $80 on that. I might just give it a wipe over and someone will buy it as a decorative piece. I have known people that just do the cabinet up and they just put a modern transistor radio in the back, and it kind of looks impressive, and that way you can pick up FM radio at all, because these are only medium wave and short wave. But it'll look great in the shop, worth a clean up. Now, I was pretty happy to find these two old timber pulleys. They're quite large, as you can see from my hand size there. That one would be 18 inches across. That one would be nearly 2 feet. They're pretty early. They would have originally been clamped probably to an overhead power shaft, and then flat belts ran off these down to various pieces of equipment. They used similar ones in early shearing sheds, I believe, but they're often seen in old mechanical workshops where there was an overhead power shaft, and often the drive was, back in this era, the drive for the shaft was run by an old engine, because there was no electricity in the early days. And these were the pulleys that probably went on the overhead shaft. Now, they're beautifully made, and these ones are in remarkably good condition considering they've been sitting around for a long time. There's no real rot, there's no insect damage. I think there's a little bit just chipped away off that one, but that just needs clamping up, and I'll give it a wash, and that's ready to go in the shop. This one just needs realigning. It's got a little bit offset for some reason, but it's just a matter of loosening these bolts off, lining it up and clamping it up again. Like many things I find in sheds, there's usually a heap of mud somewhere from a wasp's nest, but they're long gone. So I'll give them a good wash up and realign that one. And the very act of washing them, the timber will swell a little bit, and a lot of these little gaps, just from it drying out over the years, they'll actually take up and it'll look a lot nicer. And as long as I take them inside and keep them out of the sun, they'll be brilliant display items. Now, what will I get in the shop? You don't get these very often in this condition. I would be thinking I'd have $50 in a larger one. And even though there's a smaller diameter, I think it's in better condition and it's a wider one. So I reckon I'd put 50 on that as well. So I reckon you're looking at $100 retail for the pair. We'll see how we go. This selection of goodies is what I've deemed to be worthy of taking to the car wash. It's much easier to hit it with a high pressure hose, get some of the grime off it, particularly with the big old wooden army boxes. They've got sort of mud, wasps' nests and that sort of stuff. The Singer treadle, I'm actually going to dismantle that, and I'll take that back to the shop. I won't pressure wash that because I want the timber frames for the drawers. Anyway, I'm off to the car wash. Okay, I'll just put a few dollars in. All I'm going to use is the pressure washer, just the rinse cycle, and it just gives me plenty of water pressure. It won't do, I don't need soap or anything. I'm just going to try and get the dust and grime off with the pressure. What was that? $3 gives me 5 minutes. Alright, where do we go? We've got a start button somewhere. Oh no, I've got to press the rinse one. Alright. And let's get wet. And that's it, everything's had a good wash. Lucky it's a nice mild night because I've got a fair bit of splatter. It's one of the problems when you stick a pressure washer nozzle into a box, you get a fair bit of blowback, so it's not the cleanest job, but it does bring everything up nice and neat. And as you can see, that old army box has come up great. It was full of muck, so great way to clean things up. I did spray the bottom of that Singer treadle, but I'll go back now and take the drawer brackets off it. And the sad thing is that the poor old ute, I've had this ute for many years, great, you know, great workhorse, comes down the car wash all the time, it never gets a wash. Never mind, I'm sure it'll get over it. Okay, I better pack this stuff up and get back to the shop. So let's finish off this video with the stuff I've just pressure washed. We'll start with the timber boxes. This one's a large rifle box, or something to do with army anyway. Look, it's well weathered, but it's still quite sturdy. Very popular, these things. I get lots of various army boxes in my shop. In this particular area there was a lot of military training dating right back to World War One. They did a lot of training around these parts, and I'm always turning up army boxes in sheds. There's still a big army base called Puckapunyal, which is not far from here, and they do a lot of live ammunition testing, and we can often hear bombs going off. So anyway, this is a nice box. I find they sell really well. Timber boxes are a real staple of my shop. It's kind of like garlic bread at a restaurant. They're just popular, they sell well, everyone seems to like them. So this one cleaned up really well, as you saw in the video earlier. Once I pressure washed it, cleaned all the muck out of it. Someone will buy this for, oh look, they could even put seedlings in it. They could use it as a box at the back door to keep various things in. It could be a dog bed for a long skinny dog, who knows. I don't mind what people use it for, but that one's going in the shop. $30, no problems on that one. This next one's another good size. It's it may have had, I don't think those handles are original. I reckon someone's grabbed this army box from somewhere. It's certainly military. Those brackets are typical of military, and these latches and the rest of the latches no longer there. So it certainly was an army box originally. Someone's put these other handles on it, and it's a nice clean box. So that will sell just purely as a good practical item. I could see that at someone's back door for keeping boots in, or small kindling for the fire just outside on the veranda or something like that. So there's I'd probably go 30 on that one again. And a couple of little boxes to finish with. This one's really cute, and I can't quite read what was written on it. It does say USA there. It is early dovetailed, so it's a nice early box. Hasn't rotted on the base. It's got a split there, but that doesn't matter. It's still quite solid. I think these dividers were added by someone, and it was possibly in a workshop, and it held nuts and bolts or nails or something. But that will be a nice easy seller. That it's a good little size. It's probably just over 12 inches long, maybe about 15 inches. It's quite clean. I could see someone actually using that in their kitchen. People love sort of rustic stuff, especially if they've got a country kitchen style property or an older property. It could be mounted on the wall. There's a little shadow box shelf unit, so lots of uses there, and that'd be quite popular. Even though it's only a tiny box, I reckon I'll get 20 for that as well. And the last one is a classic small arms ammunition box, known as an ammo box. My dad had lots of these in his shed when I was a kid. They're probably still there. People made them into all sorts of things. There must have been millions of them end up around the countryside after the war. I think a lot of them date to the 40s or 50s, so after World War II. But this one's a really nice solid one. Beautifully dovetailed in the corners. The bottom's good on this one. There's no insect damage or anything. So that's a great piece, and I sell those really quite easily. I'd get 30, I'd probably put 35 on that one because it's got a bit of nice writing on the sides. Here's the last couple of timber items that I washed up. The first one's a large plane, woodworker's plane. It's a very long one. It'd be 18 inches long, quite weathered, a little chippy around the top there. There's no blade in it, and it's just got a little bit of kind of rot happening at the end here, but it's such a great historic piece, and the handle's still on it. So just purely as a decorative piece, lots of people collect old woodwork tools. I'm just going to put $10 on it, but it's a great piece. I'm sure that'll be snapped up quickly. And this other one is a fireplace fender, and it's a nice solid oak. It's actually in really good condition considering it was lying in the dirt. The joints are solid. It's good and heavy. Oak's quite a heavy timber. The rail is a brass covered steel pole, nice brass decoration in the middle, and it's nicely chamfered along the front there. That will sell quite well. It's just a matter of finding someone. Oh, there's a bit of a nick there, I don't know what's happened. Looks like someone's cut into that with a saw. It won't matter too much. That will sell fine to someone just depending on measurements. So I sell quite a lot of fenders, whether they be cast iron or timber, and people always have to measure and ring me back and make sure it's going to fit. But this is quite a long one, and it won't matter being a little bit longer. And the idea, of course, is that they sit in front of your open fireplace and they'd stop a log rolling out, keeps it on the hearth area. So yeah, that's a nice piece. I'll put that out the front each day because it looks good out on the footpath. It should sell pretty quickly. I'll just put $20 on this one and I won't have to carry it in and out for too long. So let's whip through some of these other things that I took to the car wash. This mag wheel, I think I called it a donut mag when I was out fossicking, and it was possibly because I'd missed lunch and was hungry. They're known as a peanut mag or else a jelly bean mag because of the shape of the hole there. Anyone who sort of started driving in the 70s like I did, everyone wanted these mags on their car. Value wise, I just weighed it because it's a cast alloy. It's actually magnesium alloy, hence the term mag. It pays, I think it pays similar to aluminium, cast aluminium, which is probably $1 to $1.20 maybe, depending where you're from, a kilo. It weighs about 7 kilos, so we're looking at under $10 scrap value. I'm going to put that in the shop for 20 bucks. Someone who's got a car with these sort of mags might be interested. I think it's a Holden stud pattern. I know it's a 14-inch rim, so it doesn't appear to have any damage. So $20 in the shop for that one. This big heavy old jack is really decent. It's just kind of a ratchet jack. It's not a hydraulic one. And it does operate. It's a bit hard to do it one hand, but it does actually operate. I'm not sure what I'll put on that. I think it's got a bit of history as far as the railways. I did see on it. Here we go. It's someone's welded it, but it's VR, which was Victorian Railways, and that was the symbol they used. Whether it was ever originally a government jack for the railways or whether it was purchased and someone put that mark on it to keep it with the workshop, I don't know, but I'm going to sell it as a railways jack, and because it's operational, it's got big heavy gears under there. I'm going to put $30 on that one. And these big bread baking trays, I did pressure wash these as you saw. I'm leaving them as they are otherwise, not cleaning them any more than this. Some of them have holes in the bottom. They're all well and truly rusty, but that's their attraction, and they will sell really well as garden pot plants, or just people seem to like rusty metal, and being from an early bakery gives them a bit of historic appeal. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 of those. I'll put $15 each on those, no problems. So there's what, $60 return. Happy with those, they'll look great in the shop. Right, these three washed up okay. They were just very dusty and grimy. I haven't cleaned them inside, and I'm not really worried about the inside. They're only really for sale as a decorative item, not for use. This Riga backpack sprayer is pretty cool. It could even have been an ex-Fire Brigade one because of the red. It looks like it might have been Fire Brigade. Some of the early ones were brass. This one's actually galvanized steel. Magnet sticks to it. It's not in bad condition, as in it's not dented or anything like that. Doesn't appear to be rusted out. It is a bit sludgy inside, and I'm not going to try and clean it up. The straps are old, hard, perished and broken, but that doesn't matter. It's a decorative item. That'll sit up on the shelf in the shop. $25 on that one. The two jerry cans. There were a lot of jerry cans in the shed, and I left most of them there because they were 20-litre ones. They were more modern. This one I grabbed because it's a War Department 1951. It's quite a good solid heavy one. It does look to be a bit rusty inside, but no one's going to buy one of these to actually use. It's more likely to be a shed decoration, or I have had people who restore military jeeps, and they like to get War Department jerry cans to go with them. Similar to this one, I'd say this is a military one as well. I can't see military markings on it. It's the older style screw top, and this one actually looked pretty clean inside, but I suspect it has, yeah, it's got USA down the bottom. So I don't know much about it, otherwise it's a nice decorative piece for someone that likes military stuff. I suspect there is maybe a hole there because it looks like it's been circled and there's a bit of a crease. So perhaps it did weep a bit of fuel out of there. But regardless, I'll be putting 20 each on these nice decorative items to go up on the high shelf in the bloke's room in my shop. Now, in my picking video, when I found the Victor Mower in the corner of the shed, I think I said they started in 1955. I did look it up, and it's actually 52 that the Victor Mowers first started being produced in Sydney. This one I grabbed mainly because of the badge, and it cleaned up pretty well, that badge. And on the back of it, I think it says use Castrol oil. A bit hard to see, but it is embossed there. That's the most of the value on this frame. And I've seen those badges go on eBay. I checked, and there was one sold for $100, but they'll sell anywhere from $20 up to around the 100. I guess it depends on how well you market them. This one is in very good condition, all the original paint, protected by a good layer of dust, obviously. It's only got 2 wheels, they'd be the original wheels. This one, I think I said dated to the 60s. I reckon it's probably late 50s, this one. And I could sell some of these other parts. I saw one guy selling this cover, and he had a few bids on it. But I'm going to hang this one up on the shop, just with the 2 wheels. Hang it up off the handles so that the badge is proudly on display, and I'll put $100 on this one, and hopefully a Victor collector sees a bit of value in all the bits and pieces. And the base actually isn't damaged. Original paint mostly, and even around the exhaust port here, the cast aluminium is fine, it's just lost the paint. So that base is certainly reusable if someone wants to build up a mower from that. So $100 for that one, good find. Now this old engine's a beauty. I really like this, and you know, I walked past it probably 10 times during the day before I actually stopped and looked at it. It's a branded Pilot, and if we look at I just polished the brass tag up a bit so I could read it. It's the Wing Gauge and Instrument Company in Melbourne, and I just did a bit of googling on this, and they were made in Melbourne up until about 1960. This one will be a 1950s version. The Pilot one was 2.5 horsepower, little air-cooled 4-stroke engine, and believe it or not, this one not only spins over, but it's actually got really good compression. So I think the internals on this motor are actually in pretty good condition. They were apparently used for marine situations on boats, as well as other general purpose power plant needs. All the carby controls work fine there. It's actually in good nick. Unfortunately though, it's missing the magneto. I believe though they were a Lucas magneto, so it would be possible to find one. So there's every chance that this engine, depending on who it sells to, could well be restored and running again one day, which is fantastic. It's great to save things from being melted down for scrap metal. And a good old Australian made 1950s 2.5 horsepower engine may well run again, which is great. So I'm going to put this in the shop. I'm going to put probably about $100 on it, and I think someone that's into engine restoration, particularly Australian made ones, will quite love that it's almost completely intact. There is information online about it, so he should be able to source a magneto, and the fact that internally it actually feels like it's in great condition. So yeah, I'm very happy to bring that one home. I have a bit of a soft spot for engines. I grew up on a farm and spent 10 to 15 years in the repair industry, and I always liked fixing up old engines. Now the last thing I'll appraise in this video is this Singer treadle sewing machine. It's a nice cast iron ornate frame. The treadle actually still works. I don't know if I can reach in there whilst I'm filming, but see, it actually still treadles quite nicely. These are really common, and I always get people wanting to sell me these or ask how much they are. Obviously this one is badly weathered and I've started taking it apart, but value wise, like everything, it's a supply and demand situation, and there is way more of these Singer treadles out there than what there are people that actually want them. So these days they really don't sell for much, and particularly when they're badly weathered. This one really I only brought home because I can use the cast iron base. What I'll do is I'll finish taking the timber off that. There's no real value in the timber there. It's all it's only ply, and it's all been affected by moisture. But the base, they look great in the garden with a marble top on them, or I've sold them with glass, a big sheet of glass on it, or even just some old rustic timber. So there's, even without a top, I'd get $100 for that base. So that's the value for me, not as a sewing machine. I've pulled the actual Singer sewing machine head out of it. It's actually quite a pretty design, and it would have been a nice one had it not been left to the ravages of the shed. But all I'm going to do with that is stick it out the front for $10, and someone will buy it and stick it in their garden. So really no value to me otherwise. As I said, they're really common. It's going to be rusty. It's probably got the odd spider still under it. But I'll get 10 back on that. The top was totally stuffed, so that can go to the firewood pile. And the drawers, now they were a bit affected by moisture, and one of them's lost its knob unfortunately, but I think I may have a spare in the shed. But people get these drawer assemblies, and I've seen them done beautifully. Screw them together, put a nice matching stained piece of timber on top, and you've got a really nice miniature chest of drawers for storage. And all these drawers are still in pretty good nick. Probably need a bit of a clean up and a revarnish, and just a little bit of gluing back there on the decoration. And that one's probably a little bit worse. But look, they're a great saleable piece, and I'm going to stick them in the shop. You can see it's got decorative pieces on either side. I'm going to leave the tidying up and the finishing to someone else to do. I'm just going to put them in the shop for $30 a lot, and someone will grab them and put a top on them, and probably they'll come up a treat. The other beauty with sewing machines is you always find nicks and knacks in the drawers. This one I couldn't see much of value, but there are some thimbles and a few spare parts for the sewing machine. And I think this was some needle threaders. So look, there's a couple of dollars here or there in there, but I'm not going to worry about the value for that. The return I get is, say, $30 for the drawers, $10 for that sewing machine head, and $100 for the base. Well, that's it for part 1 of the appraisals videos, and here's the list. Prices as mentioned throughout the video. I've already actually sold quite a lot of this stuff just in the time it's taken me to get this video edited. The Singer sewing machine, all those parts have actually sold. We'll just quickly scan along. I've sold the Railways jack, the mag wheels gone, all at these prices. Quite a few of the boxes are gone, the big rifle box, a large ammo box, army box. One of the pulleys is gone. The console radio I just sold today. I did that at 70, but everything else is sold for these prices that I've listed. The kids' chairs sold the first day, probably a bit cheap. The rocking chair also sold. So it's going to sell pretty quickly, and that's the way I like to price my stock at my shop. I don't like things hanging around for too long. But have a look at the total, $975. So we're in large profit zone already on this deal, and this only represents a portion of the deal. I did a few more in this video than I was going to. I was just going to do 10 or a dozen items each video, and I'll continue to do that until we get through the rest of it. So I'll keep a running tally of how we end up, but it just goes to show that whilst it looked like a load of junk to a lot of people, there is good money to be made here, and there's no outstanding treasures, but it's just, you know, reasonable quality, interesting stuff, and good quantity, and that adds up to a good profit over the deal. So look out for the next video, next part on this series. I'll put a link at the end of this one, and I'll put links underneath to the original picking video as well. See you later.